Nope, Twiddlers 9. Looks like we're live, right?
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello. Hey.
Hi.
How are you? How's everyone?
Good.
Not
Good.
bad.
Well, hanging in there, I guess. Is
Yeah.
the best way of putting it.
Yeah,
Trying
for
to
sure.
keep cool.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so yes, great to see everyone. Great to see you all.
Yeah,
See you.
it's been
It's
some
been a little
time.
while.
Yeah.
Yeah, we. I should do some housekeeping shout outs first. People who are watching this on YouTube live can put comments in the comment section in the live chat, and if they have any questions for one of us or to us all, then they can put it there, and we can drag them into the screen and answer your questions, or if you want to say hi, just say hi, whatever. So yeah, that's it basically. Oh, there I see some familiar names popping up. All the stream punks are here. Looks like that. So anyway, so yes, I see Shifted and Sigha are nicely hanging out in their studios.
Cozy.
Some interesting stuff going on there.
Yeah, it's a bit of a big mess. I moved in literally like a month before we got locked down, so it's kind of cobbled together at the minute.
Okay,
Where are you based? Where are you based?
London, but I mean, I was
London.
living in London before. Like, I moved back from Berlin 2.5 years ago now, something like that, 3 years ago. But we moved. I mean, we moved like 3 times since being back here, and we moved again just before we locked down. So I got everything set up as quickly as I could to keep me sane. Like,
so you got everything working by now?
Yeah.
In the studio?
When
Yeah.
it wants to, yeah.
Okay, so I see behind you some modular, and also at Guy's studio I see some modular stuff.
Yeah.
Can you tilt your laptops? We can have a little bit of a view,
yeah.
or nice.
Oi!
Ooh.
Oi!
Blinking lights.
Yeah.
Oh look! Look at you guys!
Somewhere around there.
Both of you.
It's very.
This is pretty much everything that I use now. Really. I've got some electron bits and pieces as well, but pretty much everything is coming out of there now. I got a really nice sampler, and that kind of killed off any need for me to use anything else, and keeping it all in that environment.
What sampler are you using?
It's a Rosum assimilator.
Okay.
And Dave, I think it's Dave Rosum. He used to work for Emu.
Rossum. Yeah, Rossum. Dave Rossum. Yeah.
I'm very happy with it. It's like 8 outputs, 8 triggers.
Oh, nice. Oh, 8 triggers as well.
8 triggers.
That's great.
Polyphonic.
Yeah. All bells and whistles, basically. You can get polyphonic stuff going in it quite easily, quite interesting, just by sampling individual notes and triggering them.
Wicked.
Yeah. It's interesting. Since I got that, like,
can you type that in the chat? Because I want to look that up. See what we're talking about.
Okay, so Steffi's again showing some showing a little bit tempted. I mean, it looks like all of you've been the only person capable of holding off, and all other 3 of us are victims. In the Eurorec craze, I guess.
Being the operative word,
I got to be honest with you. Like when Robin mailed me all the stuff that we discussed when I was part of my first Not Twiddling invite, like I was really excited, and then I started to browse, and I had some things, and I was like, all right, what am I going to order? And then I looked at like, is it anything that I in my drum synthesizer haven't got that this can do that I can't do? And then the Pulsar 23 popped up, and there was a couple of things, and then I was like, at some point, I just like, boom, I finished. I just closed the laptop. I was like, all right, now is not the time. So I'm still safe. I haven't been ordering anything.
You haven't been infected.
It was hard. No, but I already start asking, like, okay, what kind of box was Joachim showing me, and what's the best thing? And is it, can I travel with it, and how can I blah 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 blah. And then he was like really eager to show me all the things, and I was like, oh god, I should be maybe focus on getting through COVID, and then when things are picking up again,
worry
then
about
maybe
that later.
Yeah, this is what I tell myself every time I open the Schneider's website.
Yeah, well, this is the problem. There's all these little doors that you open, and you can, once you go through one of them, it just leads you down another door and another door. It's like, oh, what's this 500 series? And then you get a 500 series case, and then you start delving into that, and then you get into Eurorack, and that's just obscene how addictive it is. And yeah, I mean, you just, especially we were living 5 minutes from Schneider's Laden. Me and James lived kind of above, and it was just too much, actually. But yeah, I miss those times a little bit.
So you said you got into it and recently then, right? I mean, you said now everything's coming from the modular. So when did you make the transition? And is it like a true transition, or is it just an addition to your existing arsenal?
I think at one stage I had a kind of smallish system, and I was just kind of setting up a patch, like a kind of basic synthesizer patch or whatever, and using it like a tool, like anything else in the studio. And then at some point, I kind of got into the idea of having everything coming from there. And what I like about using modular is sometimes a patch, it becomes its own little ecosystem. Like different elements are making other things happen, like through various connections that, I mean, sometimes even when you set up something wrong, it will do something interesting. So you get all these, everything is affecting everything else. Like you open up the fucking decay on something, and then just, you know, the entire patch will come to life.
Yeah, and I think just exactly that is the amazing thing about modular.
And that's what I've never got with anything else. And I think since I kind of, particularly now, I've got samples in there as well, and I've got, it's such high quality, and like it sounds like it's coming directly from a drum machine, or, you know, if it's coming straight from Ableton. It's so clean and precise that since I got that, it's kind of really taken over, and that was like a year ago. And then as soon as I got this thing, and like I had more of a need for additional sequencers. So I've got one sequencer that's driving anything melodic, really. That's like an 8-channel. It's an Eloquencer. I think a lot of people went for that. I think it's kind of pretty much standard in a lot of people setups these days. And then I've got a Erica Synths drum sequencer, which is like a 16 output gate sequencer, basically. I'm
just looking at the sampler that you've just sent.
Yeah, super nice. Highly recommended. Highly recommended.
Yeah, really
the only problem with it is when you get it, it's like you suddenly need a lot of additional filters and a lot of additional envelopes and whatever. So it's one of these things that you buy, and then you need to buy a bunch of other stuff as well just to drive it.
8 new filters, 8 new envelopes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What about you, James? When did you get into it?
So it must have been about 7 years ago, but really it was a very like kind of tentative toe in the water. I remember I was with Guy, and he convinced me to buy the first couple of modulars, actually. We kind of both got into it at the same time, and I mean at that stage I was really still doing most stuff in the box, like and I was kind of a little bit nervous of like hardware and stuff like that, to be honest. And so I thought the best way to do it was obviously to dive straight in the deep end and get involved in modular. Like I didn't really think that one through.
I remember that. I remember, like, I think we were at Schneider's, and I persuaded you to buy the.
You were just like, you can just run your synths and drum machines.
Yeah, just run stuff through it. You know, just make yourself like a little Eurorack effects unit.
Effects patch. But of course, as soon as you get one thing, that was a lot of fun, and then you want another thing, and you know, it's exactly what Guy said. It's like it's each module is a little gateway to another module, and before you know it, like, I mean, I've been now making 99% of everything I do or put out in the modular for a while, I guess. But I'd say actually in the last 6 months I've fallen in love with stuff in the box again, to be honest. Like I just got the Summit as well because I wanted a big polyphonic synth rather than like just everything there being patched and kind of geeked around with. I wanted something that was a bit more playable and hands-on.
I think there's certain things. I mean, that for me is one of the pitfalls of modular. It being very sequencer driven. Sometimes I get stuck in, I'm trying to do an idea and I'm just using a sequencer when really I should just be touching something and like hitting like something at the right moment, just adding little touches to something rather than always getting stuck in the idea of like a loop.
You can obviously set the modular up to do that, but I think
because
of how it is,
because of how it is,
or at least I tend towards exactly what you're describing. And so I kind of thought that an actual something standalone polyphonic would make me play more rather than just patch.
But it seems that
because I was gonna throw in.
No, go Steffi.
Yeah. No, I was going to throw in a little bit of a question, because I've bumped into quite a few Eurorec fans, and I have to say the majority were like doing techno. And now here's a question that I'm very curious about. You think that's is that like the most logical progression from people who've been doing a lot of techno over the years? That's where the curiosity goes when you've done that type of music. That's easier to kind of drift away into modular than if you would say, for example, write pop music or more like house music or just a little bit more melodic kind of stuff.
I think. What
are your thoughts on that?
First, let's say hi to our friend Surgeon. He's
hi, Tony.
Tony, what's up, Tony? What's up? Anyway, I think it can be anything to anybody. If you want to, you can make a setup which is set up just to do effects, or you can make a setup that is made just to do sequencing, or you can have all kinds of tasks that happen in the studio to replaced by something from the Eurorec domain. There's so much you can do with it, and I don't think any musical genre is unfit or not possible to achieve with modular. But it lends itself.
Like a skilled producer.
Well, no, but the thing is, it just lends itself so much to experimentation, and if you are, there are ways to use it even from an approach perspective. You can completely design a system and then just see what it does, or you can go in with a specific idea and hope you can realize it, or you can just randomly patch stuff, or just patch on the go and see what happens. So anything from a planned system to a completely free exploring situation is possible. So there's really no specific or specific rule or set way of working with modular. You can be, the fun is basically just you just go on this journey. You you throw yourself into it, and you can stumble upon things.
I'll just see something like I'll sometimes watch like modular videos on YouTube or whatever, this kind of thing, and I'll hate the music that someone's making, but I'll be like, I've never seen someone try to set something up in a particular way. Little processes, like individual processes that people set up that just spit out like amazing results without you really having to put that much effort in.
Once
you set it up, basically. And obviously you need the ear to kind of land on something that's like you still. But I enjoy that. Sometimes I go in and I'm not really thinking about making music per se. I just want to go in and set something up that's interesting. Like just take the time to kind of, explore some area of it that I haven't delved into. And that's what's actually been nice about the whole COVID thing, is just having so much time to kind of drift off into areas that you don't usually cover, basically.
Have you been recording those?
Yeah, I mean, I've spent pretty much the entire time in the studio, there's been something really freeing about it, as awful as the situation has been. And I mean, I just put out this record, and the plan is to have another album by the end of the year, I think. So It's been quite productive, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can talk endlessly about why people use modular, but I guess if once you have some experience with it, you know why it is, because in my experience, it's something you can use in any stage of the production, in any stage of the creative process. You can just go there and think of something you want to do, like a system you want to set up, and then you can just go and improvise, see what happens. But you can also really look for a very specific purpose, drive something into a certain box because to achieve a certain sound, for example. So there's really no
it's super flexible at the end of the
day. Really flexible. Yeah.
It's like the way you can wake up and one day it can be like a kind of a 10-voice polyphonic synth with a lot of work and hassle put in, to be honest, and patching. And then the next day it will be like a really interesting drum machine, and then the next day it will just be like a simple mono synth or whatever. Like it's all of those things. It's just like it's its flexibility that makes it, I think, so appealing to people.
So there is one thing though that people who use modular can sometimes run the risk to end up in like endless noodling and. I see James. A smile on James' face. Okay, tell me.
It's what I love. Well, I mean, to be honest, if I could, I'd just noodle away all day, every day. I think, like, I think since kind of really diving into the modular world, like, I would be quite happy just making odd, strange noises. And I know that maybe might not be applicable in I guess, like a kind of a Sigha context, but like that's, I'd be quite happy just basically spending my entire time doing that, And I think my output has perhaps fallen off because of that.
100%, definitely. Yeah. But I have more fun doing it. So
yeah, exactly.
That's what it's about.
What did you say? Can you repeat what you were saying?
I just think
your output has been.
Yeah, I think.
Up,
I mean,
or down.
You guys,
because of that.
I reckon my.
What were you saying?
Hello.
I think Steffi didn't pay her bill.
Yeah.
Sorry, Steffi, you're dropping out. So.
Yeah, my internet, my output's gone up, but my money's going down.
But yeah, I think.
Am I back now?
Yeah, you're back. Yeah.
I mean, I think what I mean is it's just because it lends itself, like like everyone was saying, to this kind of like open-ended experimentation, and that's why I fell in love with working with modular. But also because of that, like
it can be very open-ended.
Very open-ended.
Yeah.
And so I mean, essentially, I'm having more fun, but releasing less music, I think.
Yeah. There's a comment
shifts
by
the priority.
1,000 details. Yeah. This is connecting to what we are saying, Hello, 1,000 details. So I guess coming back to what you were saying, James, do you waste time, or do you feel you sometimes waste time, or are you just recording everything in the hope that something may be usable in the later stage?
I don't really ever look at it as wasting time, to be honest.
Of course, but I mean,
because no, as in, like, I think it's a fair enough kind of like way to phrase it, but it's I think every time you're sitting there like patching, like I'll discover something new about the system, and even if I end up after the day going, well, everything I recorded was garbage, like I would have learned something, whether it's even something not to do or so it's never a wasted session. But also, to be honest, I don't record absolutely everything that I'm like. There's not like just a live stream going into my computer because
but I should do that more. Yeah. I mean, quite often I have that thing where I'm like, fuck, I should have hit record like an hour ago, and this is just like sliding basically. But yeah, that happens in all situations, I guess, as well. Like, whatever, however you're making music.
That's not just modular specific.
Yeah, totally.
Well, I think in my case, it's just like so far, like there's two reasons. I mean, I have a shitload of equipment, but the reason why I've never touched Eurorec is there's two reasons. One, I have a very addictive personality when it comes to hardware thingy. So basically, if I buy one, it's not going to stop. So I'm kind of like. But second of all, I think what I've been doing and the way I've been producing it has become such a comfort zone that I'm like, it's very hands-on for me to say like, oh, this is what I want, and I type of snare drum that I want to make. I've like like I told Joachim, I'm collecting a lot of like drum synthesizers, and they can kind of like they've got like 4 oscillators in one thingy, and I can come straight to the point with what I want to do, kind of thing, instead of like stretching long periods of times where I'm just like in the zone, twisting and kind of. I think that's like much more like a protective kind of thing that I'm doing for myself.
But I guess Steffi,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but you using drum synths is essentially the same. Yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah. They just take more space.
That's why I think I'm. Yeah, that's true though. But they look. No,
yeah,
they
look absolutely. They look better. Yeah.
But I thought about it a lot because it's like I've been doing some teaching over the past couple of weeks, and see a lot of young kids, and they're going into modular, and then I listen to the compositions and try to give some proper feedback on the arrangement, and then I see a lot of like soundscape development where I'm just like, oh wow, there's like 5-6 LFOs doing certain things, and it's beautiful. It's amazing, you know, like it's stuff that I don't focus on when I design music. But then I see there's massive lack of arrangement quality because it just goes and it goes, and then they start talking about why they made it, and like listen to what's going on. But I say, yeah, listen, but is it a song? Like, I'm fucking bored. It's beautiful what you've done technically, but it doesn't, and that's kind of like I'm always kind of like triggered to ask if that's the result of like, because it's so come up with a sonic result that you would have come up with some kind of mono synthesizer, but doesn't that kind of like take you away from just hands-on making something that it's like, oh, I'm looking forward to do this or that, do that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like, I mean, I think it definitely can do. It's exactly what you said.
I'm a bit scared that
people can fetishize the kind of the method and the process over the end result a little bit, I think, when it comes to modular. Like, but if you're worried about that, the fact that you're worried about that, I think, would mean that you wouldn't fall into that trap. Whereas I think, I mean, it's a trap that I know I fall into for sure, you know, but like, I think if you're conscious of it already, like, I don't think you'd need to worry about it.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm just more worried that if I buy one thing, it's going to be lost cause.
Yeah, that's
It's just about getting your workflow right, basically. I think when you start off with this stuff, it's very easy to just go down this kind of like never-ending road and like not actually get anything done. But I think once you kind of develop a workflow that works for you and just have to push through things. It's the same as recording anything else. Like, don't hang around on one idea too long, or quite often it gets contrived. You just need to, work fast, get ideas down, and then sift through and edit later. I mean, that's more my process, I guess. Like, I'll do one pass with like quite a few elements, usually all coming from the modular at the same time. But it's very, very rare that will be untouched. So you have to completely chop that up, edit things, do overdubs, etc., etc. I find gain staging and getting like a sound that I'm happy with, like in terms of just like thump and sonic weight, way more difficult coming from Eurorack than I do, say, if I just plug in like an SH101. It just sounds good straight away, plugged into like a cheap
without any
mixer
processing,
without any processing. Whereas stuff from Eurorack, not everything, but it just will have like a bit of a cheap VCA or whatever, and then you record that, but it requires like more additional work afterwards for sure. Like more, like, I would put everything through.
I find that very interesting that you're saying that, like that you have to trouble gain staging or getting it right in a mix, because you know that certain synthesizers, you know, they fit together, either they're out of the same range or the same brand, and you know, okay, when I've got a mini Moog, it's difficult to lay the bass line in the mix, but when I do this and that, and I think that this is so new to see what.
Well, this is all. There are loads of different manufacturers of varying quality, obviously, like components of like vastly varying quality. And some things will do one thing very well and it will be inspiring, but it might just sound a bit shit. But there's things you can do to get around that. Like, since I sold my mixer, I don't have a large mixer anymore, but I've got like a 16-channel UAD thing. So I just have like UAD SSL preamps on like 8 channels when I do my initial pass, and just run most stuff through that, and just try and take the time before recording actually to get it as sounding as good as I possibly can, so I don't have to spend ages fucking around with it later.
Do you end up doing a lot of post-production then in the end of the day, when you've just, I presume that you kind of like multi-track what comes out of your modular system, and then is that and then is there like a phase where you start to do post-production, or is there so much tweaking going on live that you don't have to do a lot afterwards? You just chop it up and then arrange it.
Well, actually, like, because I'm running straight into the computer. Say I've got like 8 channels going straight into my computer. There'll be processing happening out of the box, like it might go, I've got some digital effects units and bits and pieces and some hardware, like it might be going through some outboard dynamics, and then it will go into the computer and it might be going through some more digital effects or whatever, basically. But I usually set all that up before I've hit record, and then once I hit record, like actually most of the internal processing is done, and then it's usually just a case of chopping and editing and tweaking things and automation, basically.
Yeah.
How do you deal with automation? Do you draw things by hand, or do you have things that create movement, like automated things like LFOs, or
obviously within the system, there's loads of stuff like that I can create movement with really easily. Once it's inside the computer, I'm on a mouse, basically. I just draw stuff in.
Yeah, because
no controller assigned.
No, like I've got a computer, but a controller, but I just
you should use it.
Actually,
I actually got a controller for exactly that for the first time, and
that's amazing.
We had this conversation.
We had this conversation.
Even just a simple like what is it? Akai? What is it called? The red black one. I normally use it for live, but I did a simple. I actually did a simple DJ mix with some effects with it, and it's like, it's such a good humanizer to just assign the controllers to it and then do all the automation just by using.
It makes life so much easier.
Yeah, I agree.
Because whenever I hear your music, Guy, it's very loopy on one hand, but there's no bar is no bar is the same. There's always movement going on. It's like things are sort of drifting in and out and stuff.
But it's like a really fine line between boring and
but a really delicate well. No, but it's you definitely
on the right side of it, mate.
Yeah, you definitely nailed that for sure. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so you're saying basically it's already going in. Basically, it's recorded already with a lot of movements. You're not all. Yeah. You're not just. Yeah. Okay, makes sense. Yeah.
I actually find it's also a way of dealing with latency that I get when I start overdubbing things as well. Like if I've stacked a load of effects on later on, I'll get like weird latency problems if I'm like I've got this box that should sort it out, but quite often it doesn't. If my computer is too old and can't handle the amount of processing that I'm doing within it, so it starts to really lag when I start doing overdubs and stuff, which can be a pain in the ass. But that, for me, as well as not having like easy routing, has been the kind of the downfall of going just digital in terms of mixing stuff, basically. That's kind of what I miss. Kind of like the flexibility of having like easy routing,
like desk and stuff.
Yeah, like a hands-on desk, just to do that stuff without really having to think about it. Actually,
is that a space problem, or you just didn't want to have a desk anymore?
It had lots of issues, and it was a space problem too.
Huge, your desk.
Yeah, it was. I had like an old Soundcraft Ghost from the 90s.
Oh yeah, old school.
Yeah, really nice desk. It sounded amazing. But it was causing me issues.
They have automation on it, like they have. There's I think the extended modeler has automation on it. I don't know if that still works. I have no idea.
Version, which I think was the one I had, which was without automation, basically. But there was definitely an automated Ghost, definitely. But at some point, I'd like to get something small and like good quality, like a little X desk or something like that. Just for the routing.
Not so noisy.
Yeah, totally. And just mainly it's to set up things like group processing on like a drum bus easily, basically, without having to set stuff up in the computer and then route it out of one output and record it back in, and then it's just a pain in the ass. Like that's where I hit problems with digital recording. Yeah.
What about you, James? Do you use a mixer, or are you recording straight into the box?
Yeah, just recording straight into the box now. And I mean, I think the main thing I miss is actually it's less kind of like sends and stuff like that, and more just the sound stage that I feel you get from going through a desk. Like things just kind of like felt like they'd sit better. I don't know if that was just my head or just kind of like if it's natural.
On the desk or in the box?
No, on the desk. You know, like stuff, it would be, if you kind of spread a mix across the desk nicely, like I feel like it would be much easier to get things placed right rather than kind of...
way easier. You can get it done in a couple of minutes. Whereas it's pages and just fuck around. Whereas usually it's usually about fader positions and like gain staging and volume before you even touch EQ. But like when it's in the box, I start being like, oh, maybe I need to EQ it. But actually, what you actually need to do is turn this element down, and just having that real proper hands-on in front of you. I don't think you can really.
No, it makes so much difference.
And you got more visual feedback as well, because you have the whole mix in one view, basically.
Yeah. No, totally. So I mean, I definitely miss having a desk. I would have one if space wasn't an issue.
Right.
Like, you know, I mean, living in London and having a smallish studio, it's not really the one.
Here's one from Tyler. Tyler, what's up?
Hello.
Directed to James. You said earlier you're falling back in love with the box, or mixing in the computer, I guess.
Yeah.
Curious to know why and where you find inspiration within or with the computer.
I mean, I guess it started off editing it's kind of like what Guy was saying, editing these like long modular weird sessions and kind of chopping them down. And I kind of began collaging them together and stuff, and doing a lot of post-production and processing, like EQ, but also like effects and things like that on them. And then I started to feel like, why, if I'm doing that, why kind of like totally write off the idea of using synths in the computer, or like, you know, plugins, and not just kind of like post-production. Like I guess I'm just trying to be a little bit less militant with where I'm coming from, you know?
Okay.
Like, but yeah, that's why. And also when you're traveling, like it's nice to be able to kind of open the laptop, open Ableton, and kind of start something, which you can't obviously do if you're totally tied to a studio.
That's true, but I don't think I've ever actually made anything on the road that's
Yeah.
ended up coming out. You sort of fiddle around with stuff.
Yeah.
And usually, in my experience, not saying for you, James, but
I definitely.
usually in my experience, I get in the next week and I'm like, I've just like fucked it up, basically. If I've recorded something in the studio and I'm like, oh, I just want to fiddle around with it and see how it sounds. I always fuck it up in headphones, like just something about sitting on a plane with the background noise or whatever. I'll just
there, obviously, but it's just about having fun. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, making music should obviously be about having fun.
Yeah, yeah.
Totally.
I found myself doing things that using
good point.
Yeah, whenever I try to do that, like start up Ableton or whatever on a computer when I'm traveling, I usually use the environment, so whatever sound is coming into the mic, or I might use a little sound card, and because you're not going to be doing the same things you are doing in the studio, so I leave the studio stuff for the studio, right? And the things that you can do when you are on another location or on a different location for that moment. And so I've done, some things, just tracks with only the sound coming in from the mic, just looping things and stacking things
and whatever.
And then just make big chains of stuff, processing that sound, and then all kinds of just useless things, to be honest. But some of that stuff, it's very easy to, if you're in that mode, to get like an hour of recording, which sort of drifts in and out different atmospheres and stuff. And I've got a bunch of that stuff lying around, and sometimes I just throw it in and see how it sticks to in a context.
Like James said earlier on, I think it's never time wasted, is it?
Exactly.
It's just.
But to come back to how to make music, or if you're making music on the road, you shouldn't. I mean, the feeling of being restricted and not having everything at my fingertips that I'm used to having in the studio, it just makes me frustrated. So I'd rather have a whole different mindset and just use whatever is available in the place that I am here while traveling.
I mean, like genuinely, sometimes I find getting out of the studio, and making music wherever that might be, is actually, I find that inspiring, to be honest with you, rather than frustrating. I mean, not necessarily. I wouldn't say necessarily starting a track from scratch, because I'll be wanting to make sounds that I know I just won't be able to make because I haven't got all my equipment there. So I understand what you mean. But I guess once the track is at a certain point, I mean, even just taking headphones down to a local coffee shop sometimes, if I'm honestly, if I'm really running into a kind of like a brick wall with it, and just an environment change, and then coming back in the evening and firing it up again, seeing what's happened. Like, I think just kind of shaking up your process sometimes can be super inspiring rather than frustrating.
Yeah,
personally.
I've always liked the idea of like taking a few bits and like renting a cottage somewhere nice and just kind of like spending
it's
a couple
romantic, creative idea, right?
Yeah, totally. Wear a little roll neck, maybe.
Say hello to David. David.
Hey,
hello.
David.
Rotterdam North.
I think in general, I wouldn't mix on an airplane or something, but I think it's just fun to be able to work everywhere and just switch your mindset. And what you said, James, resonates to me as well. Like if you don't have any pressure of like, oh, I'm working on the plane and oh my God, but does it sound okay or not? Like I've done many little sketches that ended up being a track when I implemented the studio afterwards, or when I did a recording in the studio and I had long sessions and then long multi-tracks, and then I just cut it down on the plane. I was like, oh, actually, this is really good. And then, of course, the sound circumstances aren't really proper unless you use a little bit of a noise cancellation headphones. But most of the times, like stepping out of the studio and just, not giving a fuck and just, have 2 hours on a plane where you're normally bored, or you say, oh, fuck, are we still not there yet? For me, that's a way to easy kill time. And I'm always surprised when I make it and then I put it in a different folder. I know, okay, this is stuff that I made on the plane, and sometimes I open it and it's like, oh wow, okay, I don't know what that day was, but that sounds really interesting. and then sometimes replace a couple of drum things that might not, have the right frequency or they don't hold up for whatever reason, and then bringing them back into the studio. And I'd be surprised how many things actually saw daylight that were half done on the train or a plane and half in the studio.
Yeah.
But I kind of threw that overboard, that it necessarily needs to be made like. The other day I was just editing on my laptop without even headphones. I couldn't be bothered to walk, and I was just doing some edits and then send it off.
Oh, sometimes
I mixed it, but what's the edit? Oh, great! Yeah. And then I go back. There's too much limitations if it starts to become a thing in your head. And I found things back that I know that I've just done quickly, and I was like, that's the vibe. This is the starting point of something completely new that I know that were done on the plane. But it took me a while to kind of think out of the box and not go like, it needs to be this or it needs to be this. Like from all the recordings that are on my laptop, I've also collected so many, as I do multi-tracking of 7 minutes per stem or something. There's so much music in there that I can just recycle, flip, reverse, cut, I don't know, like just, and resample. I do a lot of resampling when I record something in the studio. I'm like, I'm not really happy with it. I'll just throw it in. If I do the main stuff, I still with Logic. I just throw it in the sampler and replay it. I'm like, boom, now it sits. And then and it's a line out of a hardware synthesizer that eventually becomes a software thing, even with drums as well. Like, the sound's good, but I don't know what day it was, but the snare drum's too high. I'll just resample it, pitch it down. Like, perfect. It's interesting how
I mean, sometimes if I'm just feeling lazy,
starting not giving a fuck, like over the years.
Really, you end up with a large collection of just little ideas that you can just throw in. And like, you have a fucking shit day in the studio. Usually, there's like a couple of elements from that are actually worth
pretty good.
Picking, totally. Yeah. So
do you have a way
Do you
have a way to make those easily accessible? Do you archive them in some systematic way, or you have?
No, I just trawl through old project folders and go, that sounds good. I'll
really?
Over,
okay.
Basically. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
And
I kind of categorize.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I mean, fairly similar, I guess. Like I kind of think back to or try and remember like failed projects, and kind of have days opening up old things and seeing what's there. But also, I mean, I'll bounce stuff out as I go, like, and kind of I've got like a kind of like a folder of I mean, it's not well organized, put it that way. But there's a folder of like hundreds and hundreds of kind of like sounds and stems and stuff I bounced out of tracks that like I didn't end up using in a track, or maybe even stuff that like I recorded and was like, well, that sounds good, but totally won't work for this, so I'll record it now and bounce it straight to that folder. And so that means then it's exactly what you were saying, Steffi. Then when I'm in that situation where you haven't got your studio behind you or whatever, like you essentially have got a load of sounds that you believe in,
Yeah, that makes sense.
Do you have a special folder, Steffi, with drum synth sounds?
I have folders of many. Well, basically, when I
was going to say, send them over if you do.
Hey, I'll be happy to deliver. If somebody will Euro-rack me, Euro-rack me.
Yeah.
No, but what I normally do is like if I would be working on a 12-inch or an album, I would make a folder and start writing until it has like 30 sketches in it. And then I start to separate what kind of appeals to me after a while. And if I write on a plane and I have no assignment, I'll just start to categorize by kind of genre or whatever. And most of the time it's all like little jams. So it has everything in, but then I also in the Logic Finder, in the search function, I'll just go on clap, and I know how I when I record, how I call my certain claps and certain things out of, and I always name them after where they came from. So if it's a syncussion snare drum, it will have that thing. So if I need a quick syncussion snare drum, I'll just type it in and it rolls out and it can pull it in.
Yeah, that's smart.
And start using it, But most of the time I have lots of unused beats as well, like I jam and I don't like the melody and I chuck it up, I keep it throw it in a folder beats, and if I have to pull something up, and then I can just tap out of that folder. But I tend to write down, if it's a bass line, I would say, just hypothetically, 101 bass line, mood bass line, syncussion bass line, so I know, this is how I made it, and most of the time I can remember actually how I kind of did it, so it's easy for me to search. And also, what you said, Guy, about like gain staging, I know that certain things are very hard to mix, and if I see where it came from, I know like, okay, that can be some difficulties with the mix, and then I can see in which instrument I've done it. Because I'm a fan of like multi-tracking for 7 minutes, doing everything separately, and then sometimes just pack it away for weeks and coming back, and I'm like, wow, that sounds amazing. Or like, I don't like it, just chuck it in a leftover folder.
Sometimes if I get really excited about something that I'm recording, like I actually get a bit apprehensive about listening back to it, and I'm like, can I actually deal with this sounding like shit today? I might leave it like a week, come back when I'm feeling a bit stronger, and then if it doesn't sound so great, I can actually like deal with it and then go, okay, move on to the next one.
You know what? Me and Virginia have a folder for every little loop that either she or I have done, where you listen back and you go like, what the fuck is this supposed to be? Like, really? What is this? This is so ridiculous. You know what? Yeah, exactly. And then sometimes we're just sitting here, and you know, like when we're producing together or something, we're spending the time in the studio. We're like, come on, let's go through one of those folders, and then we're just looking at each other. It's just like, this is shit. And sometimes those are the ones that when you were doing them in the studio, you're like, oh my God, I've laid something down. This is the one. Shit. And 2 weeks later, you're going like, what?
Yeah.
You know, what actually? It's really fun. I find it very difficult to throw those away, because they always kind of like, you know, when you make a 12-inch and say I would have 8 kind of sketches, and there's always like one that has that element where you just go like, I don't know, what was I thinking when I was making these? And I always have very big difficulties throwing them away, because there's so much part of the process of creating a 12-inch or whatever you're doing, you know. But like I've actually got a folder where
just going back to those is like deliberately watch a bad movie or something.
Yeah.
Let's go watch a really, really bad movie, like a C
and
movie.
laughing your ass off, like, and they're really, really silly. And sometimes you're like, I was really convinced about them, you know. And then coming back to your question, Jacob, sometimes it has an amazing snare drum. You're like, oh my God, this is shit, but that has a hot snare drum. You just like pull it out, bringing it back into something else, and then eventually it ends up in somewhere, because, you know, it's fun to, you know, not give a good snare drum some place to be on another record, but like it's nice to go through that folder, and there's some weird shit in there. Like nah, it's not happening.
It's funny, Guy, you say that about not feeling not fit, or you said apprehensive to go back to a track, because I guess that's because you're afraid to fuck it up or something, right?
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
I get that a lot.
Afraid to find out that actually it's not as good as you thought it was. Exactly.
I just like afraid if you know you've captured something that could be special. Sometimes the easiest way of like not fucking it up is to never try at all. And I think you can do that with a lot of things in life, actually. And I think I'm probably quite guilty of that. Actually, just not throwing myself into something, not being in the race. But yeah, I definitely had that with writing music. Sometimes I'm just like, I need to be in the right frame of mind to like tackle a particular idea, basically. And like quite often I'll feel like doing something else. Like if I want to just like make something slow, or just like record some like random noises for no reason at all, I'll still feel like doing that, but I won't actually feel like tackling something that I know could be something, basically. Until I actually just have the right headspace for it, I guess. Right. Pretty odd.
Sorry?
No, I think that's normal, man.
Yeah. I don't think anything is odd, to be honest.
No,
Such
I
a
mean, make
diverse
for
process.
people who think that we really know what we are doing and just go in the studio and make a track. That's just not the way it works. You know,
Totally.
sometimes it's completely frustrating or
Of course.
hard work. Other times it just pops out and
Yeah,
it's
it just
there
comes together for some reason.
without
Yeah.
any thought. And sometimes you're not even thinking about what you're doing, and some amazing stuff happens. You know, so it's
Yeah, I mean,
it's
and in the same
everywhere
way-
on the yeah.
Sometimes I'll be like, how the fuck did I make this? I'll be
Yeah.
listening to something that I made a few years ago, and I'll just be like, I can't even program like the simplest like little drum part now. Like, I'm just useless sitting here like with all this fucking gear around me, like some just useless prick. And then fucking I'm listening to something, I'm like, at some stage I was actually able to like put this together, and it just doesn't seem to make sense to me.
I think part of that is just the kind of ups and downs of the creative process, mate. As in, you know, like
Of course.
exactly. You know, so you might.
And
feel
I mean,
like
it's the same.
totally,
It's the same for everyone. I mean, you don't get to hear everyone else's unfinished shit. You don't get
Flaws.
to hear.
Yeah.
Of course. You don't get to hear. I mean, quite often I'll change the kick drum on something, or not quite often, but sometimes, like, you know, a day before sending it off for mastering, I'll just be like, this just is not working. I need to do something. I'll change the kick, and it will all come together basically. And if I'd have mastered the other one, it would have been. You definitely have, because you're one of the people that I send all of my stuff to and go, what do you think of this? Because quite often it is hard to get out of your own perceptions of your own music. Yeah. You need other ears. Yeah. You know, it's important actually.
Yeah, and sometimes you are not brave enough to sacrifice the thing that you were really into when you started the track, or when you were working on it.
Totally.
You know, like some things are for other people who have a different set of ears or hear it for the first time. It's a very obvious thing, but to yourself it can be something you just don't want to get rid of, because it's something you're although it's ruining.
This is what it's all based around.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're like, oh,
it's the thing that's ruining the track.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, it's funny how that works.
So it's funny little lessons that you have to sort of, you know, you have to teach that stuff to yourself, really.
Yeah.
Because if someone else says it to you, it never really goes in. You have to. It's just trial and error and kind of realizing, basically. I mean, quite often. Yeah, quite often, like the last stage in making music for me is deleting stuff. I mean, not just in an editing process, just being like, oh, this just does not need to be in this at all. Just, you know, get rid of stuff. Like, why do I have like 3 different hi-hats when one will do, or whatever, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important, particularly. I mean, when you're making such minimal music, I suppose.
I think this is one example, but I see a lot of comments about distortion, so I should give Sandy a chance. Hello, Sandy. Well, I guess the question is already the answer. How do you fatten things up as a sound designing tool? Any favorite tools? I see behind
Culture
you.
Vulture for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, you've got one.
I've got a Culture Vulture, which I love. Yeah.
What did you say? Sorry.
The Culture Vulture.
Okay, sorry, you were just jumping out.
Yeah, I guess you know it's such a wide subject, but yeah, I think saturation or fattening, or you know, whatever you call it, saturation, all the way from slight saturation to full on distortion. Yeah, I guess it's something we all do, because yeah, it's just one of those things that is a staple thing to be doing in the studio, I guess. I mean, like we discussed earlier, like Guy said, it's, you know, from especially if you use Eurorec, there are some modules or some combinations that could become a little thin because of the way it's patched, or the combination of different manufacturers that don't really talk to each other that well, as opposed to a hardware sort of single purpose machine that is completely tuned for its in its own circuit, you know, flow and stuff like that. So sometimes you do need to compress things or even things out to make it sit right in the mix, or you know, that's like slight treatment just to make it audible throughout your mix. But there's also the other end, you know, the other extreme is just completely, you know, completely distort things, distort the fuck out of things just because it sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think
there's everything and everything in between. I mean, it's something.
But it depends what you want, no?
It's a tool.
What I did on my second album was like I have a lunch. How they call it, like a lunch box or something. It's the stereo. It's 2 mono strips out of a 60s mix desk from the Czech Republic, which has like distortion on it as a feature, because they used to have restrictions in the East Bloc what they could and could not play, and if they would play something that was forbidden, they would put distortion on the record because it was either something from the West, or it's a weird story. But like a guy who was sitting next to me in my studio in Berlin, he had the whole desk and he started to pull out these desks and he said to me, like, everybody thinks it needs to be an insert tool, but why don't you just put the stereo on your bus and assign the whole mix to one stereo output, and then the whole mix to a stereo output where you insert the distortion on it, and just play and feel the level between parallel, mixing it parallel to it, and then twist with how much distortion, how much gain, and just try to, it's like, the golden kind of thing. And that was amazing. Like when I heard the outcome, it's such delicacy how you can use it when you do, for example, when you mix it parallel in the mix instead of like pulling it all the way through, because then it's kind of irreversible. Do you know what I'm saying? Like if once you've done it, you're like, oh shit, the bass kick is too much. And once you've done it parallel and you're just starting to fuck around with the volume,
essentially create a dry wet knob with that's
and that box is so amazing. It has a warmth and a width to it, and then these weird distortion knobs that makes no sense to me. Like, I mean, obviously.
What is it, sorry?
It's a thing from a desk out of the Czech Republic from the 60s. It's like that's something they used in a broadcast studio.
Yeah, okay,
like,
so it's not commercially available then.
No, it's old. It's really old. And he started to take out all the channel strips and putting it into wooden boxes. So he's like, oh, I've got this nice little thing, and I got along with him really well. And he used to, work for big studios. And he said, look what I've got. And I was like, oh my god! Like he had so many of them. And he's like, can I actually buy one? He's like, yeah, man, I think you're cool. Buy it. And I was like, fuck. And then I just put it in and say, oh, it makes such a massive difference on the mix. So I think personally, like what this person was asking, kind of depends what type of distortion. I have a Sherman here, and if I twist it to the left too much, then my ears are gonna explode. But sometimes that can be really wild on a single drum element where you have a really fucked up snare drum, and then the bass kicks clean and the snare does something really crazy, then that's what I would use for that. Like it's for multiple purposes in the end of the day. Like you can use different types of distortion or just blast it through a pedal.
It's also a really nice
pull the whole mix through. It depends on.
It's a really nice distortion. Can also be a really nice way to create contrast in a mix.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And just in terms of like when you start feeding more than one element through things and things start fighting for headroom within distortion, basically, and then you get interesting movement that you would never be able to program, really. So it can become, well, I guess for some people's music it's kind of an art form in itself. Certainly with a lot of noise stuff, it's actually tempering that stuff. And
sometimes that's a bit of a pain in the ass when you're just you're pulling your whole mix through it before it goes into the desk, and if then you would mute your bass kick and it would completely change the sonic element of distortion when the low frequency is out. It sometimes annoys me when I'm like, oh, this is good, and then I mute one thing and then whoop, and the whole mix, the whole sound changes again. You have to be very lucky. It's a lot of luck sometimes as well.
It's definitely not an exact science. It's just about really,
in the creative, In the creative process, it's a little bit about luck, but when you're mixing it and you use it parallel, then you can be in complete control of how much your saturation would be and what sounds within a really nice, warm range instead of some. You know, can you remember like 5 years ago or something when it was really, really popular to produce this like distorted type of retro Chicago stuff, where as a DJ you would go like, how the fuck am I going to play this? And it was really cool among the young kids, like, oh, it needs to be distorted, and it's like, I can't play it. It doesn't sound nice, you know.
Yeah, lo-fi.
Exactly. Lo-fi house or something, whatever the fuck, you know. So I think it's you need to play with a couple of different options for. And think about whether it needs to be an end mix or an element in the mix.
When you first start doing that stuff, I think everything sounds good distorted, and then you start realizing
well, it's like it can be like using if you're a graphic designer using outlines on your fonts, you know, it's like instant gratification. It looks amazing instantly. It's like with distortion as well. If you run you know, just a stereo out of a drum machine through a distortion box, it's like instant energy. It's like
it's a powerful way to change the sound. So I guess it's very like kind of it's very attractive for people to chuck it on.
Yeah.
But then after a while, you're like, I wish I kind of took it off a little bit. It starts to annoy. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, and you know, in a mild way, it's also a very good tool to gel things together, because if you push separate sounds into through one distortion thing, you know, they start to work together a little bit in a different way.
I actually use it more in that context than anything else as a kind of as a way of gelling things. If I don't want to use, actually, like I don't use compression so much on like drum bar stuff. It tends to be more stuff like saturation I use. Like I've got the Culture Vulture is great for that. I've got a software thing. I'd love the hardware, but it's very expensive. This black box HG1 or HG2, I can't remember. But there's a software version I have, which is
that a
fantastic.
UAD thing? Is that available?
No, it's not. It's Plugin Alliance.
Okay.
I'll link you to it. Hang on, let me find it.
I mean, and then there's Sound Toys, which has the
fantastic.
What's it called? The
Sound Toys. Is it the Decapitator, Devastator?
Devastator.
And then there's the what is it that you can use on the drums? Felt Filter is great. But Sound Toys has one that's called shit. Let me just see, because now we're talking about it.
Are you talking about the kind of an 8-bit crunchy thing that they've got, the little red thing, like the Devil Lock or something? That's really good
exactly.
as well.
Yeah. You need to be kind of like
super
easy going with that.
Yeah.
But it's, I mean, on some things it completely destroys, but on some things it brings it right back to life.
I actually use that quite a lot, just like 1% or 2% wet. No, it's the Devil Lock. Devil Lock. Yeah.
And that's also an example of, you can do it on individual drums, or you can deluxe or light. Yeah, you can do it on individual drums, but you can also do it on a group, so it gets a little bit more squeezed.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, but be careful, because it can go really wrong as well.
Yeah.
Well, there is no wrong, is there? But you know.
Yeah, but like everything else, you can easily overdo it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no wrong, but there is shit, I think. That's one way to look at it.
That's a tile. That's a tile on the wall.
Marcus,
maybe I'll do that.
Hey Marcus, what's up, Marcus?
Hey Marcus, oh that's interesting. I want to look that up.
He's giving away secrets. The
Ohm Force, yeah.
Ohm Force and Beside.
I use this actually.
Yeah, I've not tried that. What's the other one? The Fab Filter one, the
Saturn.
Saturn, yeah, that's right.
I use that heat.
But they're Dutch, aren't they? The Fab Filter guys, no?
Nice, I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
I thought so, no?
Maybe. I don't know. But they've literally just released Saturn 2, which is...
Yeah, I've got the reverb, I've got the EQ, I've got the saturation. It's all really good stuff.
Filter stuff, to be honest with you.
Fat filter is beautiful. The EQ is so delicate. It's,
Yeah.
and on, especially on analog recordings, it's
Yeah.
just it keeps it so much intact, and it can
Mhm.
gives a little bit of like software brilliance that could be really interesting when you're doing hardware recordings, and later on you want to kind of like
Yeah,
push it a
absolutely.
little
Absolutely,
bit to the more.
yeah.
I love those guys, and really affordable as well.
Yeah,
You know.
Do you use
Yeah,
these
really worthwhile.
Metasonics in the? I see the Metasonic. Are those the tube?
Yeah.
Do you use them for?
I do use them. I'd say I use them a lot less than I should. Like I think I have this conversation quite a lot with Guy. I'm like, oh, maybe I should sell them, and then like just as I'm on the brink of thinking I'm going to list them somewhere, I'll plug them in.
You shouldn't. I mean,
no, I shouldn't, because then 100%. Because
Why
then
don't you hide them? Just hide them away.
Yeah,
and
just
reinvent
put your head on
them again. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like all the Metasonic stuff has got such like a unique, specific sound. Like, and it's not right for everything for sure, but that's what I mean. Then at some point I'll get them out, even if it's just once a year or something, and I'll find a use for them, and I'll be super happy that I hung on to them. You know?
Yeah, I had the drum machine, the D1000, and then Cortini did this record that was just pretty much like Metasonic's D1000, and after that I was like, well, just
you exhausted.
Can't really get away from this one record that I was obsessed with that was made with it. So I was just like, okay, it's only ever going to sound like that to me. So I sold it on, but I still regret it actually.
I'll get it back.
Yeah. Yeah. So at some point.
I've never used it, but it looks like a machine that is easy to exhaust, because you can never make it sound unlike
100%.
that drum machine. Yeah.
I mean, I think all the Metasonic stuff has got like a real unique character that, like you say, just sounds Metasonic. And also, isn't that easy to tame? It's like, I mean, I've got like a filter and VCO and distortion unit, and like, I mean, they just do what the fuck they want, basically. Like,
yeah, sometimes that's cool, and sometimes it's very
sometimes it's really frustrating. So it just depends on the mood I'm in when I walk in the studio that day. And if I just want to mess around, then maybe it's a Metasonic stay. But if I know what I want, then it maybe would drive me insane trying to tame those things.
Well, Drumcell advises not to sell any Metasonic stuff.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear, dude.
I would regret that too. Easy, mate.
It's a common mistake, no?
Oh yeah, so yeah, that's a nice topic to actually. Gear you regret selling.
Yeah, quite a few, I guess.
Yeah, I guess
Euro-rack stuff. It's quite easy to turn over as well. You don't lose too much value of it, and like if you're a bit bored and you kind of like, I don't know, just scroll through these kind of used marketplaces, sometimes you just want something, and like you'll be happy to swap something, and then you realize later on perhaps this wasn't such a good idea. But that's kind of the beauty of Eurorack systems as well, I suppose. Just being able to swap things out easily and just change little bits of it.
That's true, yeah. But I mean, there are certain things that you can get really attached to, you know, like I regret, I think the biggest regret of selling gear is I sold my Pro 1 for way too little money, and I don't know why. I thought I'd done everything with it. I just got tired of the sound, but I shouldn't have sold it. Luckily, there's one here in the studio, but yeah, that's one I shouldn't have sold.
I mean, I guess the thing is,
I don't know what I was thinking.
well, stuff. I guess you know, like taste and your own taste is circular. You know, so it's like
the thing is though. I mean, in the meantime, I moved a few times, and what I've found by changing locations, you must have the same experience, I guess. All of us, I guess, because we've been moving around a lot, and you rediscover your instruments in a completely different way when it's set up in a different way, or even has a different position in the studio, or you know, you have better reach to it, or the room sounds different. It makes you rediscover the machines you got bored with all over again.
Yeah, 100%. You get a different relationship with things.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
You get into like a comfortable little workflow, basically, but sometimes it's kind of interesting to switch that up a little bit, move things around, and just kind of like make something else the focal point.
You get out of your comfort zone creatively, and then interesting things kind of follow, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's basically how I set up this place now. There is no fixed setup, so you know, it's there is a setup for every project, and when I think I've got the most out of it, or when I get bored with the setup, I change it around, and so everything stays fresh. You know, I don't have to sit behind the same desk, or you know, have the same position for everything I do. It's basically changing all the time. It's always in flux, you know.
So you just got stuff on shelves, and you just pull out whatever you feel like using at that time, basically. That's a nice way of doing it.
Yeah, it's like this. You can't really see it because it still has the setup of the streaming thing we did last weekend. But there's this big working desk behind me, like and it's got all these patch blocks which run straight to the sound card of the computer, or to the desk, and I can just patch things in and make chains and change the setup all the time, and you know, even in the middle of a project I might just swap out some pieces and do different things, so it's always fresh. So and I really, since I've been here, for about 5 years now, and I've rediscovered old instruments that I hadn't used for years in a completely different context, you know, because it also makes a difference whether how you physically set them up. If you set up something, you know, a few pieces of gear next to each other, and have them work together in some way, they have a different. You get a different relationship with them, you know, and they work in a different. They are part of a different system at that time. So something might not be that useful by itself. But if it's sitting right in front of you, you're more focused on it, and you treat it differently because it's there, you know, rather than stuck behind something because you don't fancy it too much. So you tuck it away, and then you end up never going back to it because you've already dismissed it. But if you
out of mind, basically.
Exactly. So this is a way to really recycle all the stuff that you haven't used for a while, and
to justify keeping.
Well, not only that, but also to actually use it and be productive with it, you know. Because that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about.
One setup might be good for one day's project, and then the next day it might be something completely different. Which I suppose is the danger of getting locked into one setup that's just static for any length of time. But then there is an argument for that as well. If you're very comfortable in that mode, and if it's working for you, and if
keep it. Keep it. Yeah, totally. If everything's on the patch bay, that's in my studio in Berlin. I've got like a polyphonic side and a monophonic and then a drum side on one hand. And the good thing is about like playing melody, and I like the melody, and I'm not sure about the synthesizer. I'm in the same row of just checking it out, like, better, I'll just exchange the synth. And then, because it's all on the bay, everything's on the patch bay, the pedals, the effects, the drums, the synths, like I can just start patching start patching everything and connecting, and just pulling it right through a pedal, or send the pedal to the desk as a sound effect. It's amazing.
One of the most boring.
Change it.
It's one of the most boring things to spend money on, like particularly to do it properly and to have everything on there. But it's so worthwhile.
I thought it was a revelation. Like once I had everything on the patch bay, it was like, I can finally start making music.
Yeah, anything that speeds up your workflow and helps you get to that point quicker is an advantage, basically.
Yeah, it helped me a lot to approach many things different, you know, by everything being connectable is such a luxury, because you start forgetting things. It's nice to have many pieces and it looks fancy and might be a good investment for the future, but like if it just starts to rot away and then all of a sudden, there's another synth, I haven't touched it for a while, whereas you have it around and you know it's like on the desk, there's like it's not a horde that you have to jump like, oh, I have to connect it, and I have a MIDI cable.
Here is a comment by Jonas Rake at Steffi. Hey Jonas, what's up? He says, and I can quite agree, you're already doing modular then.
Well, that is actually that is actually very true, you know. Like I think the only restrictions that I have is that I'm actually kind of narrowed down to certain oscillators that are how would you say that, like pre-designed in a drum synthesizer. But then again, the fact that my drum can quickly go through a ring modulator by just banging it into the patch bay and then going to a low pass filter distortion, check, within like 2 seconds. And I think that's the reason, because trust me, I've looked at modular systems like quite a while, and I was like, I have to deliberately kind of hold myself back of not, because I like end results fast. So it's like I need to kind of, I know it's going to come. It's just a matter of time. But like the through the patch bays, everything is already so modular that was enough for me for a very long time. And then with my drum synthesizer obsession and my you know, all my effect boxes and stuff, I was like, this is for me for now, for what I want to do. It's kind of okay, you know, and it narrowed me down a little bit with going absolutely mental, because I could hunt for like a year on one drum synthesizer and then finally getting my hands off. And would people bother my colleagues in the US saying like, you got to bring this? And he's like, oh, for fuck's sake, last time I had to go through customs with your shit, but you don't understand. And like, no, I do understand. It's a pain in the ass. I said, no, but you don't understand. For me, you know, blah, 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 you know. So and then at some point I was like, all right, you know, chill. But coming back to what Jonas, I believe, was saying, that's actually true. I already find that very modular, you know, to be able to always have the complete setup hands-on on the patch bay, and the patch bay straight into the sound card, or the patch bay straight into the desk is already like, it's done for me. Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's removing little obstacles, because I often find this little obstacles are quite often enough to completely set me off on the whole day. I'll just be like, making music. Yeah, actually, just kind of little things that get in the way of it being a fun experience, like clock issues and stuff like that. I'm done, basically. I can't deal with it. Or you just have have to have a separate day where you're only dealing with that shit, basically. You're making sure everything is kind of as tuned as possible, basically. But I guess that's what getting a patch bay and that kind of thing is about. It's just refining your workflow so that things move as fast and fluidly as possible. Yeah.
Yeah, so
I think in the end of the day, there's also people like that are very that are very inspired by infinity. Like when I was at the SAM, used to be a place called SAM Centrum Elektronische. Am I back? Can you hear me still?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I was at the Serge or Surge, or how you call this brand, the modular system, the old one.
Surge.
Serge, is that called Serge, right?
Yeah.
The big one. Yeah. Oh my God! And the endlessness of this machine was like, after 2 hours and still going like, oh my God, where can this go? Where can that go? Something. Really, it could be something that keeps me from working at the end of the day, you know?
100%. I mean, it's like I said at the start, like I definitely think, I mean, because that's, I guess, for me, one of the most attractive things about modular. But like I said, my output and actual, I guess what people would call music, I mean, what is music? You know, what people say that's a track, right? Has definitely maybe slowed since diving into that kind of like more open-ended process.
Yeah. It's knowing when to say enough, or hit record, or stop messing around with the system or the synthesizer or whatever, and actually get on with the crux of editing and getting an idea formed, which I think for me quite often that happens post recording.
I think it's too.
Like,
I mean,
it'll be
too for me, and I think for you as well. Now it's like I definitely would almost treat them as different sessions. And when I started doing that, that was when I started to get better results and get more usable results.
So you have like a jamming day and then an editing day. But I get
edit. Editing day, you know, like, because otherwise you just get lost in this kind of like endless cycle of knob tweaking, you know.
Yeah. No, true. That's the pretty much the way I work as well. You know, you just record everything, let it happen, just try to tune everything, and you know, just sculpt something out of the endless possibilities, and then make sense of it afterwards in the computer. You know, just sort of make a. I mean, I already start working on actual structure while I'm recording, but there's always. You know, when you record everything, and it's of course it's all multi-tracked, you know, there's always like already like a 5 or 6 minute chunk which is already there, you know. You do basically have to, it's a very quick way of laying things down. But yeah, I mean, the really the thing to be looking for is the moment where you think everything comes together, you know, and you should be recording at that time. And it's like something in between designing things and stumbling upon things, basically. You know, that's what I find the most rewarding way of doing things, because it's not so literal, you know what I mean. It's you permit yourself to discover things at the same time you're writing things, and I think that's the most fun process.
Yeah, so introducing. I mean, sometimes it feels like it's introducing almost like another person into the room. You know, like adding the kind of like elements of chaos and weird things that I feel like I wouldn't come up with myself.
Yeah,
it's like
no. I mean, you wouldn't. I mean, there's some of these things you'd like to program it. You'd have to be insane. So it's just there's some processes that you're never really gonna come up with. And I think introducing those into your workflow is beneficial. I'm not convinced by the idea of like AI written synth parts and, you know, like chord structures or whatever. Yeah, and I think that's something that people have been talking about. A whole other kettle of fish. Yeah.
You know, I mean, I just mean.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you. I just thought I'd just throw it in, because that's the thing that a lot of people seem to be struggling with, clocking. You know, clocking with to make everything run together with your DAW or your computer. What are you guys using?
I'm having a nightmare,
as you suggested.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I am.
Yeah.
You're both using ERMs?
The ERM, I've got an ERM. But there's another one, right? I can't remember what it's called now.
I've got the SND.
I've got a Gen. I've got a.
Yeah, I use the SND. What's it called? Acme 4. That's a 4.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, the one I use that works with an audio signal from the DAW. So it's basically just a pulse that you have as one of the tracks, and you send out the audio signal. You send out the audio signal to the clock, and then everything can be converted in the clock to MIDI or DIN sync or analog clock, and it's got 4 separate channels. So basically, you can stop and start each channel individually. So for example, if you use one of these machines that don't let you program things while it's running, like a 303, for example, you know, if you want to change the pattern on a 303, if you want to program it differently, you just stop the channel what the 303 is on, reprogram it, hit start again, and it's running with the rest again, you know. And because with modular, sometimes if you stop the master clock and you stop the entire thing, it might come out different when you start again.
Oh, totally.
because or you know, things might be reset, or you know, things might have you know, reached the end of the an envelope or a loop, or you know, if you got triggerable LFOs or whatever, you know, it could just completely ruin your sound.
Of course.
So stopping one channel is golden in such situations, you know.
Yeah.
And also it's good for overdubs because you can on the one I use, you can tune them by
go straight to the point,
like, you can micro tune it, so you don't have to. You can basically compensate for the latency. So if you're doing an overdub, you basically have you can tune whatever is going on.
What was the name of this again?
It's the SND. That's the brand. It's I think it's German. It's SND, and then the clock is called Acme 4, ACME -4. I mean, I got it. I think before the other one existed, because I've had it for years. Yeah,
it's amazing.
And it's also
that's clocking your entire studio going to split of boxes or
pretty much yeah.
And then for the Eurorack, when you actually go to a proper clock, what do you use to convert on that end?
I usually send the Eurorack stuff clock from the SND, because it's
directly from that.
What clock are you using in the Eurorack system?
What clock? Well, clock is the actual pulse is coming from the SND, but then it goes into whatever, you know, like directly into. It depends on the patch, you know. It can go directly into a sequencer, or it can go into a multiplier or a divider, or you know, anything that I want to use. But the clock is very stable, so it's actually almost an instrument, because you can also swing the clock. You can load your own grooves into it.
Yeah, that's great.
So you can swing the clock. So the whole clock is sort of So it's and you can, per channel there is a double and half speed possibility. So it's very quick to.
Oh, you can divide and stuff. That's cool.
Yeah, but only double and half. But it's cool to sometimes just if you've got something recorded and I think I've kind of exhausted everything I wanted. Or you know, run out of ideas, I just start playing with clock speeds, and then something completely new happens. You know.
Yeah,
I also have the master clock of my Ableton mapped to a fader, so I can go from 0 to 1,000 on one slider. So sometimes fun to do. You know, just give it a whack and see what happens.
Yeah.
All right, so let's see what else we've got in the comments.
I think it's essential. It's an essential thing, a master clock. Video keeps on dropping out.
Yeah.
I said it's essential to have a master clock.
Oh yeah.
Especially if you want to record something and you're using eternal sequences and you want to go quickly to say bar 65, and then if you can't get it to stop and start arrangement.
You're freezing a bit.
Yeah, Steffi, you were dropping out, but I totally agree. It's pretty much the same as what you and Guy were discussing earlier. It's one of these things, like it's like a patch bay, you know. You don't want to spend money on it because it doesn't make any sound, but it makes your life so much easier.
No,
totally. Because it's not just like a start issue. It's not just things starting at the same time. It's like little micro drifts throughout the entire fucking thing, which you end up spending hours just like moving little bits. And it's
honestly, I don't use a master clock, and that is my life basically.
Yeah.
Just micro drifts.
And it's like the last thing you want to spend $500 on is that, basically the last possible thing. But it does.
I've been talking,
everything
to you about it for about 2 years, I think. Like,
for sure.
Hey, I see
Mr.
Hello, Geiger.
Mr. Geiger, yeah.
What's up, Kyle?
Yeah, I've got a pretty weird setup. So
I think
someone going on about how the ERM clock can also do.
You don't have a master clock.
I do have one, yeah, but I actually, it's pretty odd. I have to send MIDI clock. Yeah, James. Mine sends MIDI clock over to my Octatrack, which then sends just literally a MIDI signal back to a MIDI converter on Eurorack, and then that sends out just like, I've got it on like a 16th note pattern, and then that is the absolute tightest that I've found, aside from actually using any of its internal clock settings. Actually, just using the pulse itself is just way tighter for me for some reason. It's quite long-winded.
But it was one of the last things that I bought, although I had so much hardware, and then when I started using the external sequencer, then I was just bumping into some real issues, and then I got this. It's called the Sync Gen 2. It's an Australian guy who made it. And just somebody said to me, like, you have to get a master clock. And then ever since that thing came into the studio, that made the whole thing complete, because I can just work from my hardware and sequence without using the computer, or work from the computer. And then the computer will give a signal to everything, including the hardware sequence. Or if I just don't want to be bothered by the computer, but start working already, and then doing a jam, and then after like half an hour saying, oh, this is nice. Oh shit, yeah, let me just quickly switch on the computer. So it's like, it's two ways of being able to get everything going, right, without not necessarily having to put on the computer first, which is quite good for quick.
That is useful.
How do you do with clocking then, James? Are you just sending out the pulse?
Yeah, essentially, basically.
Correcting it in Ableton.
Yeah, I mean, literally, like, so, because I mean, there's so much drift from all, like, I mean, because I'm not sure how I've got various kind of modular sequences and stuff, and I'm not sure they're all kind of like super tight. There's always drift between everything. I'm kind of recording in,
that's the
audio quantizing.
Yeah, exactly, but generally, like, it will be coming out, pulse coming out of Ableton into right now the endorphins. What is it again? Is it the shuffle control? Yeah, and then basically, that will be going out into a 4MS clock, and then that will be being sent around. But there's always drift, and I know I'm making my life so much harder than it needs to be. But I just haven't got around to changing it.
But then again, it's also sometimes it's just a matter of like audio quantize, or just pulling or pushing a little bit, and then you're good to go. Sometimes it's hard. I mean, it's whatever you're used to. So
sometimes like when I'm, sometimes it's
you have to really remind yourself.
It's very chaotic.
So people were actually able to. People were actually.
You don't know where the one is anymore.
Yeah.
I suppose people were able to make music before any of this stuff as well. People did get things done by splicing tapes.
I mean,
oh yeah.
So like we are like pretty.
Totally.
In terms of this stuff. Yeah.
Sorry, Steph.
But do you have a drum and bass background, haven't you?
Yeah, I used to make drum and bass.
The guy has a drum and bass background, right? If I'm okay. Well, if you sometimes, oh shit, my audio keeps dropping out. Sorry, but sometimes if you hear old like breakbeats or 909 kick underneath, and the sample is not tight at all, you're like,
no.
How the hell did they not hear this? But it's within the range of like, where you're just shortly before you go like
totally.
But it's still kind of fits, because I probably have this
adds to the
Oh, completely.
Yeah,
so you wouldn't
exactly.
If everything was lined up.
Yeah, exactly. It's like sometimes the tighter it is, the more uninteresting it starting to get. Because if you just like
that's what I tell myself anyway. Without my master clock. Yeah.
Hey, but James, have you tried just doing several channels of clock from your computer into different spots in your system? Yeah, like you can basically use pulses in your DAW as triggers, right?
Yeah.
So you could actually draw out an entire rhythm
I guess
section.
rather than having it basically.
Yeah.
Totally. That's a good idea.
Actually, can you use? Isn't there a CV tools thing as well for clocking? I think there is. Maybe that's something you could try as well.
Check it out. I haven't dived into
Spit straight out and output on
it.
your sound card into your modular now.
Yeah.
Likely.
Probably. I have to check that out. Like, I haven't actually properly checked out the CV Tools stuff yet, which is a bit stupid, but I think
maybe let's have people in the comments suggest some clocking stuff.
James's clocking solutions.
Yeah. Tips for James. Come on, people. Let's see.
Well, I think the clock that I have is stopped. Like, they don't make them anymore.
Right. Okay. I think maybe another thing I wanted to touch upon with James and Guy is collaboration. How do you deal with that? Because were you when you did the album, was it recorded in one studio, or did you swap things around, or did you visit each other, or how did it come about?
An album together with Guy, or
just
the record we did.
Yeah.
Do you mean the Model Authority record?
Yeah. Of course. I mean, it's been a while, but
yeah.
Well, we used to live right next to each other. James lived below me in the same building. Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were actually together in person to produce. Okay.
Yeah, certainly for that. I mean,
I think so. Anyway, I can't really remember. It's a long time ago.
That record was written before we were living on Paul Lincoln. That was, and I remember finishing it back, or some of the tracks back in Cambridge, actually. I remember having sessions there. I remember having sessions in a flat in Berlin off Schlesien. Like, it was all over the place, but certainly it wasn't a remote thing. Like, we were always in the same room when we wrote that EP.
Right. Okay. Well, yeah. To me, I guess that's it's the only way to really do it. To be in the same room.
Yeah. It's difficult otherwise. I mean, I think it's possible.
I think it's definitely possible, because I do this project with David, Camden Ray, Neon Chambers. Like, and when we started this, like, it was I'd go over to his flat in Berlin, and we'd spend like weeks at a time recording, recording heaps of stuff, whatever. But then, because obviously now I live in London, like, I'd go back to my studio in London, he'd stay in his studio in Berlin, and then we'd kind of speak every day about what we were doing, but we'd work remotely. But because we had that kind of like that those kind of like several weeks of core material to work from, we knew where things were headed. I think it helps.
Speaking of the devil.
Hello, mate.
and a clocking tip for you.
But yeah, so I think you definitely don't have to be in the same room to get good results. But I think
No, I agree.
I think it can help. Like, and certainly when we
maybe a couple of sessions, like if you got a couple of sessions in the same room.
Exactly. It's like, I think especially at the start of a project, when you're kind of finding out what it's about.
It depends on the situation. I guess there's a certain pressure there. If you don't know someone particularly well, sometimes it could be better to be sat on your own, where you don't have to worry about someone looking over your shoulder and perhaps you've got weird ways of doing things that you're embarrassed about, whatever. I don't know.
I actually don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, exactly. I quite often feel like that. I'm like, Jesus. Imagine if I had a real producer in the studio watching me how I do this. It'd be like,
No, I whatever the state of your skills is, whoever you collaborate with, you always learn new things, so
yeah,
totally. I wouldn't say there's ever anything. If your output has been consistent and good, so what is there to be ashamed of or to be embarrassed about? You know what I mean? There's so many ways to get to the end point, so how yeah, I don't see there as a problem.
Yeah, it's more
or
about
anything to be worried about.
Yeah, just finding someone that you kind of click with, basically.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
things happen without too much effort, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, me and James did one
exactly. Exactly, I agree.
Yeah, we should do some more, James. Anyway,
really, I mean, I think literally like
Tim was actually asking the same thing.
Yeah, I mean,
Tim.
To be fair, well, we've talked about it once every 6 months, I guess, for the last few years, and it still hasn't happened. But yeah,
I feel like we're edging closer. Like I feel like we're edging closer, but it is a constant conversation. Like, and we haven't got there yet. So. Yeah.
Cool. So let's see what else we can cover. Is there anyone in the comments that? Oh, Steffi. Oh, you're back.
Are we still on collaborating, or did I miss something?
I think so.
Yeah,
Karam,
pretty much.
Karam.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Would you collaborate with a producer from a different genre?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think it's like
anybody.
Have you?
I don't give a shit what they do.
Far more interesting.
Yes.
I'd say the same thing about remixes as well. I would always much rather remix something that is not within my kind of realm, because you're just going to get parts that you're not exposed to so often, and it's going to be a more interesting experience for you. I mean, there's only so many times you can get sent like 6 minutes of 909 kick and still find it exciting.
Yeah. That's the thing with mixing stuff from the genre they ask you for. If it's very similar or very close to what you're doing, you're basically forced to make a new track out of it, rather than giving your opinion or giving your view on what's there. So it's a lot of remixes in techno or whatever, or in club music or whatever. They either become like a really lame slightly different version, or a totally new track. Yeah,
that's true. It's hard.
I think it's exciting to step out of the box. I mean, sometimes might be confusing if you are doing the same genre. You have a certain consistency and a certain audience that you reach, that they'll fall back onto you can fall back onto them, and they know what you're doing. But on the other hand, if you're looking at being a producer and just leave the club aside, I think it's a massive challenge to get your horizon as broad as possible, and especially when you're kind of like entering the pop world. Like, I've been doing quite a few big remixes last year, which were all like very pop related. That was a massive challenge. I loved it, and it was so fast and so easy, because you didn't have to think about like, oh, does it have to have that kind of sound? And now I'm not so style related, thank God, because I also obviously work a lot with vocalists and stuff. But like, I think it's really liberating not having to narrow yourself down to a certain palette that you have to deliver a certain sound, because people expect this from you. And the further away if you're remixing, further away the original is, the more freedom you get, because it doesn't matter whether you take it left or right. It's like how when you drop your expectations or don't give a fuck what other people hope the outcome to be, then I think that's very liberating. I love it to listen to people that do different. I mean, I love working with vocals, obviously, because it gives a whole different approach. But like, also, like, if you're not style committed, then you can only get better in the end of the day, because you will always bring something back to your own drawing board, what you've learned with working or remixing somebody else. I love that. Like, I think people are sometimes way too focused. Like, when you're collaborating, you can instantly see somebody's open for it. If they start to, I don't know, then I'm just, okay, way too iffy. Yeah. But they look like, I don't give a shit what happens. Let's bang it out, and then I already know it's going to be a fun day. It's the same with remixing. If they go like, oh, can you make another, yours featuring Virginia? No, I can't because she's not singing on your record, is she? You know what I mean? Like, but that has happened so many times where you're just like, oh no, I can't deliver what you want.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing worse than being asked to do something in a particular style, because I just find it very difficult to land on particular things on any day anyway. It's usually other things that dictate where I end up, not like, oh, I want to make a track like this. It just doesn't really happen like that. In fact, usually it ends up going the opposite direction. So
So I mean, also basically, essentially, what someone's asking you by that is they're putting a kind of like a restraint and a rein on your creative process. And
totally.
That's
they do.
why I started making music.
Yeah.
You know? I understand people might have certain preferences with, like maybe they like a certain thing that I did more than something else, but it's like if they want to bring like another artist into the mix, then that artist should be given the freedom to work how they feel they want to work.
Totally.
Yeah, but sometimes the people who ask a specific artist for a remix want it to sound like that specific artist because they want their signature on the track which is remixed, so
which is a pity if you're
they often have the expectations. For example, if they ask you, James, what they really want is a Sigha track.
I know, but what is a Sigha track? That's the thing.
Of course.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's maybe.
I think it's more kind of odd. Can't you just do something like this? Your big one, the one everyone knows.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. Yeah.
But that's the thing. It's like, I mean, I've had exactly that. I mean, many people would like me to do Christ Figures again. Like I've had this conversation, but I'm not interested in doing that again because that was.
Exactly.
I mean, by the time
that
time that came out, that was like
that was your vibe then.
Well, even but I mean, that was my vibe 4 years before that came out. To be honest with you, because that was when I wrote this track. And so by the time then, like maybe 3-4 years after it's come out, someone's asking me, why can't you deliver that again? It's like, well, that was me like 8 years ago or whatever.
But
like,
for example. Sorry. So I wanted to bounce that back to you, Jochen, because you like way back you did a remix for Björk, didn't you? Like of the first album. Like you were not restricted of like did you get some kind of a briefing?
No, no, certainly not. But I mean to be honest, the sort of pop remixes I did were way more free. There was way more freedom. I mean, I must say the ones that I've done for pop artists they never told me what to do. They just wanted me to just go in and see whatever. Just make something nice out of it. But the ones that are, you get asked for to do in more like the dance floor world. They have a very specific thing in mind, they really want to have, so to be honest, I stopped doing them because I don't want to go doing something which I've already done, like James said.
Exactly. But I think also like if you pick your remixes with a little bit of care, then you can always talk to the label and say like, hey, listen, I've heard the original, I've got a great idea, but you have to let me be completely 100% free and I want to go wild with it. And most of the time they'll respond like, oh, I want you to go wild. That's great. Like I did one remix last year and he said like the track was 60 BPM. And then they said like, it would be amazing if you could do a dance floor mind, but if you're not up for it, you'll just do whatever because we like what you do as an artist. We don't give a shit what you do. But if you're up for it, so I'll do it. Yeah, sure. Why not? Like it's fun to do a dance floor banger. And then there was another guy who gave a dance floor banger, and he said like, do something wild with all your drum synthesizers and just make it something woo. And then it became the opposite. So I think it's also about the communication with the label or the A&R manager or the artist that gets remixed and kind of feel if it's your vibe. But if they're too iffy, you're like, oh, can you make it sound like this? I'm like, sorry, I'm not stepping
then you don't have time.
No,
simple as that.
You don't want to do it.
Yeah, it's just about some open-mindedness on the side of whoever you're remixing, I guess.
Yeah, totally.
I didn't put drum cells thing in the screen, but maybe I did it by accident. But it connects to what we're saying, I guess. Are there any collaborations any of you have done with someone outside your genre that maybe many people might not know about?
Yeah. Yes.
You
Yeah,
have,
but
Steffi?
Yeah. I did also quite some co-production, and it's not always credited or
Okay.
or a collaboration under a different name, and I haven't revealed it yet or something. Yeah, that's definitely something that I've done.
I think Mo is is waiting for the scoops.
Nothing. Yeah, nothing that's a secret and that exciting.
It's not a secret, but it was just like.
I wish I had something to drop. Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't need to be told, right? Does it? And somebody else like, oh yeah, that's my record. Oh really? Didn't know it was serious. Yeah, I made that with that guy. But that's not. That doesn't always have to be. If you work with a label that has just no artwork or just some stamp and it doesn't say who it is, then it sometimes doesn't come out. It's quite fun, no?
It's a mystery still, though. It's nice.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. It's fun.
Yeah, I've done loads of stuff under different names, but not anymore though. But it was in the 90s. I did a lot of production things, which was just a thing to fund the studio.
Yeah.
And it's great on discos because now people can say like,
oh yeah, but no, there are some,
and then they can click and a click and a click and a click.
I've been able to keep it completely
hide a few.
Out. Yeah.
Is there like one that you would say like I'm never going to tell anybody, like that needs to stay a secret kind of thing?
It's not as much.
Ish.
I don't. No, it's not really. I mean, it's to be honest, it's completely irrelevant stuff. It's stuff that I don't even like, but I just had the studio to do it,
Yeah.
It funded like a lot of the machines back in the day, so it was just
served its purpose then, basically. Yeah.
Sorry? Yeah, exactly.
Served its purpose.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. But I don't do that anymore. Everything that I do the last, decade or whatever is all. It either stays in the studio and I don't ever release it, or I release it under a name, like publicly. I don't do production jobs anymore. What about you? Have you ever done that? Like,
I mean, lots of like kind of mystery white label projects or whatever, but nothing.
Right.
Not really studio work with other people. I've mixed stuff for friends in the past, which I've really enjoyed doing, and getting involved in the creative process in a different way, coming in at a different stage. And I think, coming in with fresh ears and no kind of like, you're not kind of attached to anything. I think that's really interesting. And that's something I'd like to do more of, certainly, particularly now I'm not traveling so much. But nothing really beyond that that's a secret, really.
There's a question about artwork by Tim Young. Sup, Tim? I think it's more or less directed to Guy about how important is artwork for you guys recording to Avian. I can tell it's
I think it's part of the entire package. I think it's important. I think aesthetics are important. How things are presented feeds into how it's perceived and listened to as well. So I think it should never become more important than the music itself, which is a whole other area that we could get into, and perhaps we won't. But
it helps. I agree. I guess it helps. It helps telling the story of what you want to convey, right? It's
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a tool to kind of, give to place what you've done, place your art, and give it context, basically, I suppose.
Identity.
Identity and context. So, but when that starts to overtake, what it actually is itself, that's a different matter, I suppose.
Right.
But I think it's important for sure to answer the question. Very important.
Yeah. Okay, let's see what else. We are almost hitting the 2 hour mark.
Jesus.
Yeah. Is there anything any of you wants to plug? Something you're working on or is going to be released soon? Or
I just did an album. Came out a couple of weeks ago. Beyond that, that's about it. Right.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have any gigs to plug.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. You cannot see me in the near future anywhere at all beyond here.
How is have you because I haven't released anything during the COVID period, but do you think, can you tell me, do you feel a difference in terms of how it's being picked up, or is it the same, or is there more interest in people?
I mean, obviously I'm not hearing anyone play any of it.
No, of course. Yeah.
That's a weird one, isn't it?
It's not getting those kind of reactions to how it sounds on the dance floor. I think that's the main thing that I'm missing at the moment, actually, is feeling music in your chest, like the physical element of it. But I think people are still engaging with music in a meaningful way. I think people are all about supporting artists directly at the moment, getting involved through Bandcamp, and I think people are, even if they've got a fucking Spotify account, they'll be like, oh, you know what, I want to buy this because I like what this person does and I want them to continue doing it. And I think that's extremely important.
Yeah, there's some awareness going on, isn't there? Like you can clearly see that people are.
Yeah, Bandcamp has become Bandcamp has become a really nice place to discover music as well. You know, it's
totally. I mean, the amount of stuff. So just since they've been doing these Bandcamp Friday things, the amount of stuff that I have stumbled upon is crazy. I mean, there's just
insane. It's
a wealth of incredible music out there that I never would have touched on. So
we've been on it for ages, but now only I think in the last year it's been it's going crazy there.
Yeah.
And, also, just to go there and discover music yourself, it's a really nice place to hang out. You know, you find things that you would never find elsewhere. It's really cool.
Yeah,
people seem to kind of make it like a massive group of people seem to commit only to Bandcamp. They kind of like distance themselves from the more regular platforms, like we don't have to mention them, but like they find like Bandcamp a little bit more less overwhelming, like advertising wise, and like the stuff that gets promoted is not so
less corporate and more like
less corporate, more like, you know,
more like your money goes towards something that you care about rather than
but also not like a top 10 by somebody. Like if you open a site
exactly.
and there's a top 10, you're like, the first thing you do is like,
it feels more like actual record shopping to me.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what's interesting now is that we can see a massive division between the people that buy your records are not the DJs anymore, which was a bit of an odd thing in the beginning, but now it's like, it's a really great sign to see. I've been releasing more on my labels than I used to when there was no COVID, and I can see that there's a devoted group of people that still buy records, for example, that are the people that haven't lost their jobs, that still want to buy their records because they are devoted to have their musical and physical product. And it has made no difference at all in the sales of vinyl, which I think is amazing. I mean, it's weird that you can't have your shit being played out on the dance floor and listen to it, or somebody bumps into you and says like, oh man, I've just bought your new record, But the vinyl sales, if it comes to the physical product, the group of people is not the people that lost their jobs because of the COVID situation, but it's just a nice little group of people that say like, oh, I do my little round of shopping every month, and it hasn't stopped, which is amazing. And I think therefore there's also a little bit of awareness now that people are seeing like it is important to support the artist, because this can actually happen, that the dance industry never ever kind of gets back on their feet, and then you're missing out on your favorite DJ being able to live off the fact that they made greater album and they can't tour. So can you just buy it and not just illegally download it, or just actually buy the WAV file so that this person has earned some of their music because they can't tour? And I think they kind of get that now, you know what I'm saying? Like there's a little bit of awareness more than before, which is good, I think.
Yeah,
you know?
It actually feels like a community, really, which is what everyone wants, I suppose.
Yeah.
For this thing for it to actually feel like something. And I think it's nice to connect with people in a different way rather than just from DJ actually. But you're right, it does seem to be more awareness around it, and it seems to be like building up to something, which I think is great actually. And the more people that are gonna reject the current model of just sort of, you pay your 10 euro a month subscription to Spotify and that's it, you're a music fan. All right.
Exactly.
You can listen to whatever you want. And that
is
come on, it's not sustainable.
No, but people, I think you're right, people have realised that. And hopefully I mean, cleverer people than me are wondering, I guess, what can be put in its place. I don't know. But like the fact that people have realised that it needs to change is a positive thing, for sure.
I think there should be a little bit more advertising and more streaming with some of the key figures explaining how important it is to buy your music and to distance yourself from illegal downloads, because it's embarrassing. Really, it is embarrassing.
Illegal downloads are not really the thing anymore, right? I mean,
no, it's streaming, of course, but like just to like kind of, because you can't eliminate Spotify, you can and on YouTube, you can just and SoundCloud, you can educate the platform a little bit more that they have to be a little bit more supportive in the percentages that they're going to pay out, and make sure that it comes to the right people. But also make the little the new group of consumers, which are very young and brought up in a whole different way, maybe just by actually hearing other people say it, like, oh, my favorite DJ just told me that it's important if I just buy an MP3, because then, he doesn't have to stop doing this or that, and actually I can give something back. I think that they're not aware of it because they're so young. But if somebody would actually, we're aware of it because we used to be buying
because we know how it was before.
Because we bought, and these kids, you can't blame them because they haven't got a clue. And then I think if there's more seminars about it, or more fun videos, or just small little things like, hey, do this or that, then they might get more like, oh yeah, of course I can do that. Yeah, why not? Like, it's nice to have my own collection and fuck around in Traktor or whatever you want to use, and listen to your collection of
you can't blame them that they don't have a clue.
You can't blame them. It's very difficult.
I mean, it's just you basically, wherever you go, you're bombarded with free stuff all the time.
That's the whole world now, isn't it? Like, it's consume. But it's nice to maybe emphasize it at some point and say, like, hey guys, we could actually, instead of just streaming your bollocks on the TV the whole day, maybe just do a nice lecture about like the possibilities, how you can spend €5 in a decent way, there's no harm in dreaming, I think it's positive. It's a good outcome after COVID, that there's more awareness of how massive it can go wrong, and that you can actually lose your option of going clubbing, and the way to keep the vibe alive is by just spending the €1 or the €2 on a WAV file or an MP3 or a FLAC or whatever,
Yeah, Sven Wittekin has a good point. If you rely on streaming and the service ceases to exist, your collection is gone, and that's true. I mean,
it's true. Yeah,
I don't know.
I'm with you all the way. It's a great point what he's saying.
And also to own something feels like more valuable in some point, in some way, I guess. Instead of just picking, just streaming things from the cloud, you never really have a relationship with your favorite music or artist or whatever. It's like a very it's untouchable. It's how do you say that? What's the good word? There's not really
tangible.
Tangible thing. That's the word I was looking for. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, because essentially it's like if you're streaming, I guess you're going to be going through one of these probably like monolithic huge companies, so there is no relationship at all with the artist. So even if you're talking about like buying digital or even streaming over something like Bandcamp, like, you know, already you're building up that kind of like relationship, because you know you're directly supporting the artist and the music that you love, you know. So I mean, that in itself is a tangible connection, like, and that's without even thinking about physical, you know, which I mean, I consume most of my music digitally these days, unfortunately, but I miss, well, I used to work in record shops and I really miss that. But, you know, like the convenience that digital brings kind of can't really be denied, you know. But I do think
it's also not a crime, is it?
No,
of course not.
But I think that maintaining that kind of like Guy said, that community and that kind of relationship between, like, you know, artists and people who love the music and want to support it and stuff is super important. And that's really,
I think, I completely agree. I think what's lacking is a platform that actually makes it fun to hang out and look at streams, and knowing that, like, you can either voluntarily donate something to the DJ, and the DJ plays stuff that gets registered and paid instantly, or like more like interactive stuff that when you listen to the stream,
that is already possible. It's already possible.
Yeah, but just on
you
a
have
tiny
Patreon
scale, you know.
Yeah. There's Patreon, and there's like YouTube super chats where people can donate stuff. On Twitch,
but
you can do the same thing.
It's a tiny world, huh?
Yeah, but it's getting there. I mean, there's so many.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, there, you know, streams are absolutely exploding at the moment, and you see a lot more interaction with audiences and people who are providing content or music or whatever. And I see it pop up, you know, everywhere, more and more than it has ever been. You know, like that people are willing to contribute to what people are giving away, or, you know, providing, whatever.
Yeah.
I think people understand its value, and they understand that it doesn't just exist. People have to put a lot of time and effort into this stuff, and if you put a lot of time and effort into something, then of course you need to be paid for it to maintain.
That's right. That's right.
And it's not rocket science at the end of the day, I suppose. It's just people need to be paid for their work.
For some of it is.
Yeah, it seems that way.
Yeah.
All right, people. Anything else we should cover, because we're already over 2 hours. Don't want to keep you from your other stuff. Anything?
I'm good. Right? All good.
Okay.
I'm good.
I have to say, I will be online after this, and you are invited as well on our Discord server. We've set up a Discord server for people who haven't seen their questions answered in this stream. Sorry, we can't, you know, answer every question. But if you do want to have, you know, ask us anything specific, or if you want to continue hanging out, the link of the Discord server should be in the description of the video, or it will be posted now. So you're invited to come over there and hang out for the Not Twiddlers Hangout after. Maybe we'll see you there.
Dreams are on you.
Cool.
So yeah, guys, it was really nice hanging out with you guys.
Yeah, likewise.
Ricky.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, really good to see you.
Thanks for the invite.
Good to see you guys.
Yeah, really good to see you.
Yeah.
You know, by the lack of physical meetings this summer, this is a good way to still
totally.
chat. And since you're close now, Guy,
yes,
hit me up.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
I'd love to come and check it out, actually. I mean, it looks amazing. I'm just checking what you've got behind you. So yeah, it'd be great to come over for sure.
Nice one. Okay, cool. All right then. Well, thanks again, everyone, and have a nice evening. And ciao, ciao, bye, bye. Bye.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.